So while Mayan society does continue to develop in the Guatemalan highlands, it appears that there may have been a volcanic eruption causing many people to leave the area, because we do start to see a kind of gradual increase in population in the lowland areas. And that really is where the center of Mayan civilization develops, in this lowland. So from the early to middle preclassic, we don't see a whole lot of settlements in this area. It's actually, contrary to what you might think, not the easiest place to do agriculture, even though it is a rainforest. It actually takes quite a bit of work. But one of these earlier sites is Nakbe, first settled around 3000 BP, when it was just a small farming village. But over a few hundred years, it does start to grow, and by 2400 BP, we see construction of monumental architecture. So you can see a reconstruction of one of the buildings at Nakbe. We know that there was pretty significant labor put into this. One of the buildings is about 148 feet high. So obviously, going from a farming village to this, we've got changes in social organization. We've got somebody that can direct the labor and command the labor to build all of these structures. Some of the earliest Mayan carvings are actually found here. Some people have interpreted those as early representation of Mayan kings. Now, the largest preclassic site is called El Mirador, and you can see it over here. It's along the Guatemalan-Mexican border, way out in the middle of the forest. But it's a really important site. We're not exactly sure when it was first occupied, because it's been obscured by the later building episodes, but we do know that between 2300 and 2200 BP we start to see significant social changes. This is when the monumental stone architecture is built. You can kind of think of these as the equivalent of European cathedrals, but these are the Mayan versions of these cathedrals, so motivating the local populace to help build them through the religion of the time. So here's some reconstructions of the monumental architecture at El Mirador. And there are two kind of significant pyramids. There's the El Tigre and the Danta. We see kind of an interesting configuration emerge here, which I'll explain in just a moment. But the El Tigre is about 180 feet high. The Danta is 230 feet high. It actually covers an area that's larger than El Tigre, which El Tigre, the whole kind of complex that's associated with it, is about the size of 6 football fields. So we're talking, again, monumental architecture. And some interesting things about the Maya, they often constructed their basal platforms and pyramid platforms with a slight slope so they could collect water in these bajos, which help them get through the dry season. And we see that at many of the big sites. They're often constructed near low areas so that they can collect rainwater during the rainy season, because when it gets dry there, it's really, really dry. So one of the things that connects El Mirador with the Izapa and Kaminahuyu is the presence of Vucupsaquish. So this is a mask on the side of a building. When I stood next to this is actually one of my pictures, I came up to about here. So we're talking, I'm 5'7", so we're talking about a fairly large relief carving here. And this would have been painted. And since El Mirador is actually constructed at a high point in the region, it would have been able to be seen from miles around and would have drawn people into this civic ceremonial center. But again, Vucupsaquish is kind of representative of both creation and destruction. We see the triadic pyramid complex, and this is pretty interesting. In the Mayan mythology, there are two hero twins, which we mentioned when we were talking about the ball game, Hunampa and Xpalenque. And the triadic pyramid complex actually commemorates Hunampa and Xpalenque. So they have a pyramid each, or a temple each at the top. And then you have this even larger kind of temple, and that belongs to the king. So here you have the king situating himself right smack dab in the middle of the origin myth for the Maya. And myth in anthropological terms doesn't necessarily mean something that's false. It means that it's a truth for the people, or for that particular people. So if you're an early ruler, you need to justify your right to rule. So what better way to do that than connecting yourself to the hero twins, again, part of the origin. And here you can even see the Vukusa Kish mask on the side of this particular pyramid. We see substantial construction at other sites, but during this time period, but nothing to what we see at El Mirador. But we do see Washaktun, Tikal, again Nakbe, Cerros, and other sites where they're starting to do some monumental architecture. What's interesting is that many sites and also kind of building areas or building complex areas are connected by what's called sock bays, or the White Road. This is actually the site of Labna, but it's the only picture of a sock bay that I had. So you can see it's basically just a road that was constructed. It would help move people during the wet seasons, keeping them out of the mud. And some people have suggested that the white roads were representations of cosmological beliefs of the Maya. Another interesting architectural feature that emerges at this time is the E group, which teaches us a little bit about Mayan astronomy. And the Maya were probably some of the best astronomers, if not the best astronomers, in prehistory. They had a lot of different things to track the movement of stars and planets. And the E group, you can see here, is a pyramid. And you have a point of observation where you can see sunrise on June 21st over this corner. Then you can see the, whoops, sorry, I clicked instead of just moving the cursor. You can see then over here also. So you have the solstices and then the equinoxes, and all lined up nice and straight. So the Maya really did align things quite a bit with astronomical movement. The decline of El Mirador, well, probably happened because of multiple things happening. They did deforest quite a bit, and that then would have impacted their ability to grow food, because the trees help with keeping the soil in place. Also, since most of the ancient Maya appear to have practiced slash and burn, if you've cut down all of your trees and don't allow them to grow back, then you have nothing to slash down and burn to put the nutrients back into the soil. So a combination of things here. And again, as we see throughout prehistory, anytime you start mucking about with people's food supplies, they tend to get a little rowdy and would either go somewhere else or rise up against the rulers. We don't know if there was any kind of uprising. I'm just kind of talking about possibilities. But you can see what a Mayan site looks like before any archaeology has been done. This is actually the site of El Mirador, and the trees rapidly come back and the jungle takes over the buildings themselves. So they just kind of look like hills. It makes it very possible just to kind of walk by Mayan buildings without realizing what you're actually seeing. So I've been within 100 feet of a Mayan ruin and not really realized I was looking at a structure simply because of the vegetation that had taken over. So that's just a little aside here. If you want to learn more about El Mirador, visit the Global Heritage Fund site here. There's a short little video, and they talk to Richard Hansen, who's the archaeologist working at this site, and they are trying to protect this region, not just archaeologically, but environmentally.